Ugh, taxes. Not when you've got strategies.
Let's go, Terry.
Well, welcome everyone to another podcast with Double D, Triple T. I'm Terri Peters, and today I have a guest, Farah Saleh. Now, Farah is a tax resolutionist, and you probably don't know what that is. But when you get in trouble with the IRS, or the IRS is coming at you with letters and liens and all that scary stuff, the person that we refer our clients to is Farah Saleh. She's the savior for all of us tax people, for our clients to be able to have representation with the IRS at these really deep levels. She's got all the fancy software. She's got all the experience, and she's definitely got the voice. She's very strong and sturdy with her positions that she takes to support our clients. She's able to really work out great deals and save people lots of money in taxes that they would normally have to pay if they didn't work with someone like her. So Farah is a CPA, and she is also, I guess the lettering is CTRS, a Certified Tax Resolution Specialist. So when you see those letters after a CPA or an EA's name, then you know that that's the person that you would call for a resolution. And then I also wanted to share that Farah is actually a very, very good friend of mine. She speaks at Mark Kohler's conferences. If you don't know who Mark Kohler is, he's an amazing tax attorney and a CPA. He's all over YouTube. He is, personally my business coach and has saved me from the boring tax transactional work and to actually get in and learn how to do tax strategies with my clients, which I'll be sharing on this podcast. And now we've got Farah, who is also on Mark Kohler's board. So she's pretty fancy over there, but she also speaks and teaches at his events because all of us need to know about the resolution side of tax. I mean, it's the dirty side of tax that many of us, don't really delve into. I can do prior tax returns, if someone's late filing and hasn't filed for a few years or whatever, but I don't get involved if there's liens and things like that. Farah is just the queen of that. And I just want to make sure that everybody realizes that it is a specialty. And she has literally chosen this specialty. So as I go through my questions, you'll learn more about Farah. But Farah, I just want to give you a minute to just introduce yourself, give us a little more background about what you're doing, and then we'll just hop into our interview.
Terry, thank you so much for having me for that amazing introduction. I'm super excited to be here with you. So I do specialize in tax resolution and representation, which is a very interesting niche because it's kind of like combining the CPA world and the tax world all into one. And I love assisting taxpayers in this specialized area because a lot of times taxpayers come to me and they're very distressed about a situation, and just being able to alleviate that stress from them is so rewarding and it's so fulfilling. So I take a lot of pride in enjoying what I do.
Oh, that's so great. Now, where are you located? Are you virtual? Are you just in one specific area? Are you worldwide?
So my firm is 100% virtual, and that does give me the flexibility to be able to stay in different states. So I do spend most of my time in South Florida, but I do also spend some time in my hometown in Metro Detroit as well.
Perfect. And I heard a little rumor that you actually are CPA licensed in Australia.
That is correct. Yes, I do hold a CPA license in 3 jurisdictions. Australia is one of them.
Perfect. So down under, if anyone's down under, you need a personality representation. Farah's your girl. So I do too. I think that's really funny. And the name of your firm is Lumen Tax Resolution.
Yes.
Okay. And we're going to have all the information underneath so that everybody can have an opportunity to reach out to you if they need you. My information is down there as well. And I have to do this. This is the new thing. So since I got this YouTube channel and I need to be letting people know to like and subscribe down below so that we can make sure that we get to reach out to other people and really spread our message. Because my message here is for, I want to interview people that have a heart for other people. And I've referred clients to you, Farah, and every time I've gotten a positive report back just saying, thank God that they met you and that you were able to relieve them of their stress and that you've just super kind and caring. And that's what I want. I want business owners that are caring, that are kind, that really want to take care of people and go above and beyond, not just a transaction, but building a relationship, letting us know exactly what's happening. I'm sure the process is very overwhelming For you, you've got a process. You've got a list and you've got a checklist and you're checking it twice, making sure you're not missing anything. But for a client, like you said, they're distressed. They're at their wits' end. They know they owe money for taxes. Now they got to pay someone to represent them. And, sometimes that could go awry. Remember the client I sent you that, he had this issue with taxes and he hired a tax resolution firm. They were going to do an offer and compromise. And he signs the documents for him, uploads everything. And what he ended up really signing was a contract with a third party for the payment, which was a huge amount of money. He had no idea. And all of a sudden he's getting collection notices because he had made an agreement to pay them, signed the agreement, unknowingly didn't realize it because he was so stressed about the tax side that he didn't really pay attention. He was just desperate to get help. And we realized that these people weren't doing anything. They didn't file anything in the right time frame or anything. And so you were able to hop in and kind of pick up where they left off and, take care of that situation. But I just want people to realize that when you're working with Farah, she's not playing those games, that sleight of hand, sign this paper and now you're going to be getting money from somebody else. That's just not right. And that really turned my heart into, a sadness, because when people are most vulnerable, the last thing we want is somebody to take advantage of them. So I'm just so glad that we know you and my clients or clients that come to me that need help. I have a really positive and safe place to refer them. So thank you for making the choice to be a resolution expert.
Well, thank you for trusting me with your clients. It's such a pleasure, seriously.
Yeah, I can tell. So what drew you into tax resolution?
I came across it by accident. I was working at a local firm several years ago, and my boss at the time was really good at handling negotiations with the IRS. And I would just kind of watch him in action under audits and how he would speak with them. And he would teach me different negotiation tactics. So I was like, can I try my hand at this sometime? So he would start sending cases my way. And I was just naturally really good at it. I was naturally good at communicating with them and getting the results that the clients needed. And so it just kind of drew me towards it. And then I think about a year later, the Inflation Reduction Act was passed by Congress, which allocated all of that additional funding. So I saw the opportunity in it. I saw that not a lot of CPAs or accountants, enrolled agents, et cetera, were dabbling into that space. So I kind of just went for it. And I'm so glad I did because it's such a unique and niche area of the industry.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, I try to stay away from it just because I don't want to make a mistake if there's a deadline, like a certain,
Yeah.
I can handle April 15th. I can handle March, April, September, October, even in Florida when we have all the extensions because of all the hurricanes, I can handle that. But when it comes to somebody having to pay $100,000 or $200,000, and if I don't get a letter by a certain date or follow up or whatever, it's like being a doctor. I started college to be a doctor. I was pre-med for the first 2 years. And then I started realizing when we were doing, I don't know, labs and things like that and dissecting. And I was like, I don't think I could do this. I mean, somebody's life is in my hands. So I kind of stepped away from that, went into accounting. Well, same thing. I look at what you're doing as important as like saving a life because, when people owe a ton of money in taxes and they could possibly go to jail or they have liens in their house or things like that, that's devastating. So
Right.
I'm glad that you have the ability to separate your emotions from that so that you can actually really help people, because I would get too emotionally involved and I don't know if I could sleep at night. But I'll just stick with tax work and tax strategies and all the, the heart-to-heart conversations about, how people are spending and working on that side, and then let someone like you handle, the tough nuts. Because working with the IRS isn't the easiest, and actually.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Do you remember a case that really impacted you?
There are a lot of cases that impacted me for different reasons. I think a case that I'm working on right now that's I find quite interesting because I don't think a lot of people are aware of different ramifications of things is there is a taxpayer and she married a gentleman and they've been filing jointly for years. And I think a lot of people who are married, they automatically go to married filing jointly status. They don't think to do the married filing separately status, or they don't even know that it exists. But the default status is married filing separately. When you file a joint return, that means you're jointly and severally liable for any debt that comes out of that return. So what she didn't know, and her husband is, or soon to be ex-husband, is pretty abusive, is he withdrew hundreds of thousands of dollars from his 401k prematurely before retirement age, and it triggered a massive tax bill. He capitalized on the fact that she's financially illiterate, and she's like, I have no means to be able to pay this. So it essentially turned into an innocent spouse case, and I'm still working on it just because it takes quite some time to work through the mechanics of the whole case and with the IRS and everything. But it just drew my attention to something that's just part of a much bigger problem, which is just taxpayer ignorance. Especially, I tend to find that it's mostly with respect to women a lot of the times. So I felt really bad for her in that case, and just trying to be there for her for support and doing the best that I can to get her to win this case it's been challenging, but it's also rewarding.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's even more challenging now because they have, all the people that took the deal to leave the IRS on May 15th. And I think there's a staggered over several months of more and more seasoned
Yeah.
you said are leaving. And so how are you finding that affecting what you're doing?
It's on one end, it's quite difficult, I will say, just because you can tell that there's a morale issue at the IRS. Even when you speak to the employees, there's a deep disconnect between those who are actually there and present on the phones versus the upper management who's answering directly to the government. You can tell that there's sort of a disconnect there, even just being on the other side of it as a tax professional and just trying to get things done. Like, yes, certain things like appeals cases are taking longer. There are certain things that are taking longer. But on the other end of it, there some of my colleagues are receiving no change audit examination reports because that person was fired and they ended up taking the deal. So it's working out in like different ways for different people. I personally haven't found a very difficult time so far, luckily, though.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I was wondering because for me, I feel like the people that are there, that are still there are less, they haven't been trained as well. And so it's going to take a little bit longer. Because I mean, I do deal with the IRS with my clients, but not, offers in compromise or major, huge amounts of taxes owed and working out some kind of deal. But still, it's frustrating for me because I know that if it was someone a little more seasoned, that we'd be able to handle the situation in one call. And instead I have to call 3 or 4 different people to finally get these in person. So I was wondering if you had that same experience.
In some situations, yeah, definitely. But for the most part, it doesn't feel like a drastic change just because, with all due respect, I just don't feel like the agency has ever been totally efficient. So it doesn't seem like a drastic change from what I've been used to in the past, just working with the IRS.
I like, drastically efficient.
Yeah, truly.
That's a good way to put. We are not drastically efficient. So
no,
that's our theme song. So how do you explain tax resolution to the average person?
I help individuals and businesses resolve their tax problems with the IRS or the state.
Okay. And so you work with the different states as well?
I do, yes.
Okay. Now, what do you think is more difficult, the IRS or the states?
The state. I would much rather deal with the IRS. And that sounds very surprising to a lot of people, but the states are a lot more rigid with different resolutions, and they have different resolutions in place than the federal. And some states like California and New York, New Jersey, even Wisconsin, they're very aggressive. They're not particularly forgiving. They don't have the same rules as the federal government. So it's very difficult navigating a lot of the states. I will say that. I would much rather deal with the IRS.
Okay. Do you deal with sales tax also or just income tax?
Mostly income tax. From time to time, I will actually handle like sales tax issues if they're like audits or something to that effect, but it's not my favorite, I'll be honest.
Yeah. Well, I noticed in my firm, there's a lot of people that like RV, people that are little RVs and they're traveling around into different campgrounds and then they're working in different states. And so they've got to file as foreign LLC and then they are to get the sales tax numbers. And since they have presence in the states, then they absolutely have to pay tax. So I'm having to learn a lot of sales tax for different states these days. So.
Oh, yeah. And it's easy. Some of these states will trigger a nexus and you won't even know about it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I have a nifty little, like a map of the United States, and it shows what the nexus is, like what the minimum transaction amount is and how many transactions. But that's only if you're like shipping or something. But if you're actually in the state, you're automatically in, and then you've got to report. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of a whole different world that I didn't have to deal with before because somebody knows these days. So,
Oh, definitely.
what are the most common reasons that people fall into tax debt?
There are a lot of different reasons. For one, the most common one I would say is it kind of starts off with they forget to file or they just don't file for 1 year. And then it kind of creates this pain point for them. And it just spirals into multiple years. And then it's like, okay, well, they're not pursuing me. So I'm just going to keep kicking the can down the road. And so it just turns into this really bad habit. So a lot of tax resolution issues do arise just from procrastination. Another one, surprisingly, is the amount of malpractice I have been witnessing since I have been working in tax resolution has been so utterly concerning, and there's just such a need to address it. And this isn't just by unlicensed professionals, this is also by CPAs. I cannot tell you the amount of times, Terri, that I take on a case and the taxpayer gives me their recent tax returns. Everything has been prepared and they have a copy of it. And then I go and I check the IRS transcripts and it shows that nothing was ever even filed in the first place. So they're preparing the returns, they're giving it to them. But for some reason, there are a lot of practitioners that are not following through. Or there's just like really bad advice that's being given that lead people into issues. But a lot of times it really is just malpractice. And it's so concerning to me. And I wish there was a way to really address it because now we're left cleaning up messes and now these people are in deep distress and they paid for services and they didn't actually receive what they paid for. So it's definitely concerning to me.
Is that something that works with the IRS when you're talking with them and say, hey, my client, you know, thought everything was filed, they paid their bill, they have a copy of the return, and the practitioner never actually e-filed it or followed up with an e-file? And, is that, considered an excuse or a reason why, an accepted reason why something is late and maybe get penalties waived? I mean, would that work or?
It's not the best defense. They've heard that story a million times and they're not particularly forgiving.
I feel like if you could prove that you sent everything and then had emails from the tax person and you had, the proof that you paid them for the return and you had a copy of the return and the email that you got the return or the portal. I just feel like it's the sad thing about it because as professionals, you're supposed to be able to trust us and we're supposed to be able to do this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
That would just break my heart if I ever found out that one of my returns, I triple check my returns to make sure they go through. So that would be horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure sometimes it's not on purpose. Maybe sometimes they just didn't realize and they had a staff member that's supposed to be checking for returns that get kicked back and they missed it or something.
But the thing is like, even when it does get addressed, they don't answer their emails. They don't want to hear that there was an issue. They don't want to hear that there was some sort of accountability involved. I haven't seen it where they took full responsibility for their actions. I'm actually working on a case right now where my client paid someone thousands of dollars for preparation, financials, everything that you can potentially imagine. And now they're in such deep trouble with the IRS and the state that he's starting to actually have physical health issues because of it. So not only did he pay for services that he didn't receive, he has to now pay me thousands of dollars to resolve this case, to prepare the returns and file them at both the federal and the state level, both individual and business. So he double paid for services. His CPA is nowhere to be found. The gentleman is licensed. And now they also have to pay legal fees because they want to pursue him for legal action. So going back to your point, trust is so imperative, but I think a lot of practitioners abuse that. And that's not something that I take lightly.
No, I don't either. I mean, I get mad when I get a return that somebody did and they didn't do it right.
Yeah.
It bothers me, but just not filing a return and then causing all those issues that come from all the late penalties and all the interest and everything else, especially if you don't know for a year or two and then all of a sudden they find out, just the accumulation would just be devastating. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank God there's a few of us that really are good at what we do. We care about what we do and we go the extra mile to make sure that we're taking care of our clients. So That's
Oh,
one of the reasons I love you is as I feel like I can trust you. My clients can trust you. I think you feel the same way about me. And I think it's important. We have a group of people that we can, colleagues that we can trust and we can lean on each other. It's not, tax can be lonely. We work a lot of hours and, we're trying to make sure they take care of everybody. And sometimes things fall through the cracks, but something like that where, years go by and then all of a sudden they find out that they didn't file a return and you get hit with all those penalties and interest, that would just be horrific. Okay. Here's the big, 3 words that everybody you see all over YouTube now: offer and compromise. What is an offer and compromise and when is it good to use?
An offer and compromise is when a taxpayer they're not able to settle an offer and compromise is essentially when a taxpayer goes to the government and they're like, hey, I'm not going to be able to full pay the amount that I owe within the remaining time left of the statute of limitations. So let's make a deal. So they're essentially trying to settle their tax debt for less than what they owe. And the thing with these is they're totally and completely oversold to the public because these tax relief companies, in the case that you were mentioning before, particularly, they can charge thousands of dollars for preparing these offers. There's a lot of meticulous calculations and paperwork that goes into it. So they sell them to people that don't even qualify for it. And the harsh reality is there's literally less than a 45% acceptance rate with an offer and compromise. And on top of that, even if your offer gets accepted, you have to be like a squeaky clean taxpayer for the subsequent 5 years after that. So even if you're part of that 45% that gets accepted, a lot of people don't actually get their full amount settled because they drop the ball within some period of the 5 years where they don't file timely or they have another liability. So they're definitely oversold. And usually the good candidates for an offer and compromise is an individual who has a large amount of tax debt that, taking their assets, their income, their future income, and several other factors into consideration, are not going to be able to full pay the amount remaining in the 10-year statute that the IRS has to collect against them. And what the IRS does, and a lot of people don't talk about, is they compare the amount of the offer to how much they could realistically collect from you in a payment plan with the remaining time left of the statute. So if they can collect more from the taxpayer through a payment plan, you can forget the offer. And a lot of people don't do that computation. That's something that they do on their back end. So there are a lot of variables at stake with it. Definitely oversold to the public, and definitely not a lot of taxpayers qualify for it. And there are different types, just depending on the circumstances. But the most common type is doubt as to collectability, i.e., I'm not going to be able to full pay this amount, so let's make a deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard, well, the client that I referred to that had that issue, I felt bad because I've always seen the advertisements, and then to see that they kind of coerced him into, they took advantage of him. They coerced him into an obligation to pay a third party. I feel like it was a bait and switch. I mean, but then you got to trust what the client said too. I mean, I had no idea. So you never know what's happening, but the fact that, something like that would happen when you're coming to them to resolve something, and it actually opens up a bigger can of worms. I mean, it's hard on marriages. It's hard on their health. It's hard on their regular finances. I mean, you never know what's going on with somebody's health or finances. And then all of a sudden something like this comes up. So I was just curious because a lot of people talk about offers and compromise. So I thought that would be a great question to ask you.
Yeah, they're definitely not easy to obtain by any means, but I actually have
50%. So
yeah, I mean, I do have clients that qualify for an offer, and that's not a decision I make lightly, because it does require a lot of time and effort and a lot of their money in order to prepare it. But there are a lot of people that could potentially be good candidates. It just requires it's just a meticulous calculation of deciding who's a good candidate and who's not. So,
right. What about like if somebody gets an IRS letter? What should they do? What's the first thing they should do when they get the IRS letter?
address it as soon as possible. And then the next thing that I highly recommend is a lot of IRS notices, or most of them rather, are computer generated. So a lot of them are actually prone to error. And so I would go through the entire notice and make sure that what the IRS is saying actually is correct. The IRS generates an entire stream of revenue off of incorrect notices because people are so scared that they'll just pay it. But a lot of times it's just It's simply incorrect information. So verify that it's correct. Make sure that basically what they're saying is valid. If not, then respond to the notice in the exact format that they tell you to. Don't do anything, that deviates away from that. They say, if you disagree with this, send it to this address. Don't do any fancy stuff outside of that where you want to that's where I see people trip up a lot is they do it the way that they want to do it, but just literally follow the instructions on the notice. And if you do respond back, then always send it certified mail return receipt requested. A lot of notices are related to collections where they're just sending one of the series of collection notices of CP 501, 503, 504, etc., just reminding the taxpayer of their balance owed. And if you don't have the means to full pay, then you can certainly entertain a resolution like a payment plan or a partial pay installment agreement or something that works with regard to your financial situation.
Right. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like it when my clients give me a letter like months later and you're like, oh my gosh, you're already past the date. So
Yeah.
for a miracle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you help clients manage the emotional stress that comes with these tax issues?
That's an excellent question because there is a huge emotional component into it. And first, in a discovery call, you have to be very careful with how you ask certain questions. So instead of asking, how much do you owe? How much is the IRS saying that, or how much do you think you owe, or something to that effect, or how much is the IRS saying that you owe? So I'm very careful in how I articulate my questions because they already feel very vulnerable and scared to be addressing this issue. And they don't know what the ramifications are of opening this can of worms. But when they explain to me their situation and they're just like, I'm just so stressed out and I don't know what to do. And I'm like, there's always a solution. There are always solutions. And there's so many different strategies that we can take into consideration in how we approach this. But the most imperative part of it is you need to act as soon as possible because the longer you wait, the less options you're going to have and the less likely the IRS is to work with you. So I think that's a really important component of it as well as I just always make sure that they know, I got you and you're going to be okay. And there are solutions. And unless you had the intent of defrauding the government, you're probably not going to jail.
Yeah, I know people immediately think, oh, I got a letter, I'm going to jail. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often. That's more of like a criminal implication, a criminal tax implication. Even if the case goes from civil to criminal, then the burden of proof actually switches to the IRS. So there are a lot more resources involved in those cases. And if it wasn't intentional and it wasn't willful and you can prove that, then you're most likely not going to jail.
Okay, well, that's a relief. For all the people out there that are listening that get a letter, don't panic and think you're going to jail. Just read the letter and see what it's asking. Usually if it's something that's, that they received information of something that should be on your return, it's on the return. It'll show up on one of the pages, usually the second page, and just double check. Look and see, is that actually your debt? Is that income that you actually received? Is that, does that belong to you? And if it doesn't, then I would, reach somebody to call the IRS and tell them, hey, this doesn't work. They don't have to go to resolutions for that part, that level. But I like to, those are the calls that I like to make and say, well, okay, is this your debt? Did you actually forget to put your 1099-B, which is your stock sales or whatever? Well, yeah, I totally forgot that. Oh, well, and this looks like it's right. Do you have a basis? Things like that. So there's little steps that I do with my clients, and when they send me a letter, they send me just the first page. I said you need to send every page because every page has something important on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I concur.
Yeah. So make sure you upload all the pages so that we have all the information that we need so we can double check things. But okay. So what advice would you give CPAs and enrolled agents that are thinking about specializing in resolution?
In any type of niche?
Well, just specializing as opposed to I'm more of a general. I mean, I do specialize with crypto. I do specialize with real estate and the small business owners and the S corps and things like that. But some people just do dentists and some people just do, I don't know, nonprofits, and some people do resolution and some people just do bookkeeping, things like that. What do you think about specializing? Do you feel like there's more of a need for it or?
I'm personally a huge fan of niching because the thing is if you try to be good at everything, you're not going to really be good at anything. And if you know a particular industry or have a particular skill set, first of all, everyone's going to know you for that thing. So everyone knows FARA and tax resolution. It's top of mind awareness kind of thing, which obviously helps from a marketing aspect. But also because I'm so committed into this niche, it's like I spend a lot more time and resources into amplifying my skill set as opposed to being more broad. It's kind of like you're a jack of all trades kind of thing. And it doesn't really work. You're just kind of generalized at that point. But when you market yourself from in a niche perspective, it definitely, I feel like, opens more doors your way because people associate you with it. And it gives you the opportunity to be really, really good at this thing. I think there's some reservations with certain tax professionals or other professionals in general who are like, well, if I niche down, like it's going to prevent me from being able to obtain more clientele. And that's not the case. If you niche down, you can charge more for your services. Everyone knows you for that thing, and you can be really, really good at it. So I'm personally a huge fan of niching. I know it doesn't work for everyone, but I'm personally an advocate for it.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. Let's see. What tech tools or systems have helped you manage cases more effectively?
So I personally use Pitbull Tax, and I think it's a really cool software because you literally pull the information from the IRS in real time. So what's pretty cool about that is I'm currently working on a case and the transcripts get updated weekly. So I actually updated one of my clients' transcripts recently, and I saw that the IRS was about to, I think they were about to levy him, and it has the future date on there. So I had a chance to address it before they were actually about to pursue any sort of levy action. So I love that I have access to that type of software because it gives me time to mitigate the issue before the client even receives the notice. That's really cool. But with regards to other systems and softwares, I'm actually currently working on switching things up this summer. I'm pretty excited to share once it all comes to fruition. So stay tuned for that.
Oh, we'll have to have a round two.
Yes.
The double D, triple T with Farah Saleh. Oh my gosh, how exciting. That's fun when you're really putting the time in to build something. And then when you finally get to actually use it and see it in action, that's,
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure it'll work out awesome. All right. As a young woman in the accounting field, because I'm like towards the end and you're like, get just like rolling, and you're not green. You're certainly not green. You definitely have some years of experience and a lot of knowledge and obviously a huge, amazing ability to articulate. Um,
Thank you.
and I'm kind of at my probably the next 10, 15 years, I'm done. So what is it like for you as a young woman in the accounting field? What challenges have you faced and how have you grown through them?
I would honestly say the the age factor has been a little bit challenging, or mostly was in the beginning. So I remember when I first decided to go off on my own, that in and of itself is a pretty big decision. You're kind of indoctrinated in school to go to one of the big four, go to one of the big regional firms and go work under a CPA firm and get all this experience and make partner. And I tried it and it just wasn't what I wanted. I didn't want to work for a CPA firm. I really liked the path of entrepreneurship. So making that decision, especially at a young age, I was 27 when I made that decision, was incredibly challenging. And to your point, it could also be quite isolating because everyone around you is well seasoned and they're professionals. And it seems like there's already a community outside of what you're trying to build. So I think one of the most challenging parts was just trying to acquire the knowledge that I currently have now. And I felt as though a lot of like the older tax professionals, they just were not very accommodating or welcoming to that. I remember like I would join certain groups or Facebook groups and ask questions, and I would do like thorough research. And they would just make like very rude comments, and they weren't particularly kind or welcoming. And personally, I feel like if you're in an older leadership role in a profession, it should quite literally be like your duty, or like you should have some sort of willingness to want to teach and mentor and empower the new generation and not demean them for trying. So that was something I particularly struggled with a lot, is just dealing with professionals that were not particularly kind or warm or welcoming or wanting to, empower you in any way. And so things are better now just because now we have a community, and now it's kind of like, if I don't know a question, I know I can ask you. I know I can ask one of my colleagues, and there are no stupid questions. But it was difficult in the beginning to find that space where I could actually ask those questions and have that outlet,
Mm-hmm. Well, I experienced the same thing. I mean, I was in accounting for many years. I mean, I did also work with one of the big four, and I'm not made to be an employee. I'm a terrible employee. I tell people that all the time. I'm not into this whole third floor is the executive floor. You can't talk. Don't go up there. It's like, oh my gosh, we're all the same. We're human beings. If you have knowledge, why can't you help somebody? I love the community that Mark Kohler put together.
Yeah.
Certified business advisor or tax advisors, because we actually do have a lot of very seasoned people, and then we have a lot of very new people, and then we have a lot of people in between. And everybody has different experiences, and it's just really nice to be able to start building our core people so that we could say, okay, who's done this? Like I had something to do with ESOPs and things like that, just some wild payroll stocks and things like that. And so I know how to do that, but I wasn't 100% sure. I wanted someone to review. And then we have a colleague she started out with a startup salt for years. And so she's like an expert in that field, and she's able to review the return and say, yep, you got it. You knew it. You did it right. But if I had done it, if she came back and said, why don't you change this or change that, I would have been happy to do that because I would have learned. But that's what we should be doing. I'm sorry you had that experience, because that makes it hard for people to feel safe to ask questions when they're put down. I mean, I've worked with firms that, I would bring up points, and the owners of the firm didn't like the fact that I wasn't just so compliant, and that I would bring up stuff. It would make them question what they were doing. Because I think sometimes when people get into a firm, they limit themselves. Like with the certified tax advisors, we are surrounded with so many different people, and we go to the Mark Kohler's conferences and we listen to the different teaching that other people are doing. And so we're on our calls every week. So we're constantly being exposed to different things, different people, and, the opportunity to ask questions and listen to answers from the legal side, from the tax side, from accounting sides. And it really makes a big difference. But when you run your own firm, you're limiting yourself. They're not calling somebody and say, hey, can you review my return? They're just that top person. That's where it stops. And so when you get someone like you or someone like me in those kind of firms, and we're questioning things, well, why are we doing this? Or what about that? Do we need to have support for this? That makes them question and second guess what they're doing. And people don't like that. Now, me, I like it when someone asks me questions. I encourage it because, I don't know everything. I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And I've been doing this over 15 years, and I still have new things that I'm learning. And that's one of the things I like about tax is accounting was kind of boring, but you need to do accounting for tax. But when I was just working in accounting, it was kind of boring. But when I get into tax, everybody has a different story. The numbers are the same. The forms are the same, but the stories change and the grouping of what people are doing. Some people might have investments in a certain area, and then other people might have investments in a different area, and some people might not have any investments. So you do get a lot of variety, and
Yeah.
it's kind of fun. I mean, I don't just do dues and things like that. I did when I was in the voluntary income tax assistance program, the VITA tax. When I was in college, I used to go to the nursing homes and do taxes for the elderly people there because it was a free program. So we would sit there. And I was in the paper one year, when I was still in college.
I love it.
Helping the old people get their Social Security reported in their 1099-Rs. Okay.
Love it.
So what do you see as the future of tax resolution? Where do you think it's headed?
I think this is just like my own opinion, of course, but I definitely think that there is this premature adoption of automation and AI that they're trying to do in the agency, which I kind of speculated would be over the course of several years or even 10 years, really, just because it's the IRS and they are pretty slow to adopt to new changes, especially with regard to technology. But now that it's happening like a lot quicker, just under the current administration, obviously that's a good thing, right? Because in the future, like it's probably going to be a lot more efficient. But my concern with it happening as quickly as it is it could potentially lead to a lot of errors in the short term where maybe people are being levied when they're not supposed to be being levied, or they're receiving notices when they shouldn't be receiving notices. Anytime there's a quick adoption of something relating to tech, there is some kind of cause for concern that things could go wrong, especially with an agency like the IRS. So I definitely think tax resolution is here to stay. I definitely think it's going to look differently in the years to come as the agency is being restructured, especially with AI coming into the picture. And I don't think that it could just be like a fully automated agency. I could be totally wrong with that just because the world is changing very quickly. But for the time being, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I've noticed the letters coming out now that just don't even make sense. It's like
Yeah.
a letter for a client, and they said, you haven't filed your 2024 return. And so the client, uploaded it to me, and I went, oh my gosh, I know my the extension. So I went and looked up, and the extension was accepted. I'm thinking, why in the world is the IRS sending a letter? The extension deadline is until October 15th. Why are they sending a letter in July asking for the return when we've clearly filed an extension to file until October 15th? I mean, it's just like, what a waste of a letter. So maybe part of them, their AI, instituting the AI in their letters. It's crazy.
Yeah.
They should be focusing on what they need to be just focusing on, right? We know we have October 15th deadlines. My goodness. Okay. So what is one piece of tax advice that you'd give every entrepreneur or freelancer?
Be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because I think a lot of people shy away from the fear of the unknown. But as soon as I took fear out of the driver's seat and so many of my decisions, it's just led to so many miraculous opportunities. And I never thought my life would look like this. And I'm eternally grateful that I've taken the chances that I took.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think that's great. I love it. And that's the thing. When we have opportunities, if you're not in a space, and I'm kind of the hippie, I always like everything a certain way. I like sound and meditations and healing and just mindset. And I feel the same way. When I took fear and worry, more worry than fear, but fear is kind of worry. They're kind of the same, but they're different. So when I took that out, and I just look at it like, okay, this is what I need to do. And I just do the next thing, ask questions. If somebody doesn't answer my question, I go to the next person, ask that question. I keep asking until I find the person to help me. And I do it with a heart of love and humbleness. Like, I know you're busy. If you don't mind answering this, I just want to get confirmation or whatever. And I feel like once I started like feeling more confident in doing that and not worry about the stupid question that people are so worried about asking. And if somebody gives me, disses me with that, I'm like, hey, I'm asking a question. And if I knew the answer, I wouldn't be asking it.
Right.
So if you know the answer, please just help me out. And sometimes people don't know the answer. So that's when they start belittling you because they don't know the answer. And it's like, it's okay if you don't know the answer, because then we'll both find it together. How's that? When I find out, I'll let you know. And so I'm finding that in this group that we're in, we're all trying to help each other. And that makes a big difference. But like you said, when we're outside of like a group that we can connect with, and we're kind of like a lone soldier on an island, we don't have anyone to ask questions to, and we're afraid to do anything different. So we just keep doing the same thing over and over. And who wants to be in that, on the wheel, the hamster wheel, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do a little rapid fire round, and then we'll tie up our interview. So, IRS letter or root canal?
IRS letter. Don't touch my teeth.
You do have nice teeth, I gotta say.
Thank you.
You did a good job with your maintenance over these years.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, your first reaction to, I owe $100,000 to the IRS.
The IRS is saying you owe, or
No, like someone tells you, like, what's your first reaction? I owe $100,000 to the IRS. Like, say you did somebody's return and they come out and say that to you.
like a tax they have a tax liability for $100,000.
Yes.
Oh, don't worry about it. We'll figure out some sort of solution. Don't freak out yet.
Don't freak out yet.
Don't freak out.
Don't freak
There's a
out
solution.
yet.
There's a solution for there's a solution for everything. Don't freak out.
It's called a payment plan. Okay. Coffee or spreadsheets to start your day?
Coffee.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. One tax term that you'd love to erase forever.
One tax term that I'd love to erase. Wow, that's a tough one. I don't actually know a tax term that I would love to erase forever.
You can think of one.
I'm going blank. Oh my God. A tax term.
I think
Yeah,
I would
simple.
put the word late.
Late?
Yeah. I don't want to have a late filing or anything like that. I wish we didn't have, I know you have to have deadlines to get things filed and all that, but I wish we didn't have to have deadlines. I wish you could just file our returns when we're ready and, do our taxes,
Yeah, so mine would be tax deadlines because it just stresses me out. Yeah.
Just the word stresses me out.
Tax deadlines. Yeah.
It's like, okay. I mean, you would think it would be something really fancy, but really it's the simple thing, just like just a regular tax person, even the tax professionals, we still have a little bit of stress when it comes to that because, if this is the last chance, or, for me, it's like, oh my gosh, am I missing anybody? Did I miss anybody? I've gone through.
Yeah.
Did somebody new come in that I don't have in my system yet? And then file the extension. That's happened to me before. And so I didn't have the process in place to be able to catch that, a few years ago. And it's just like, that's the worst feeling in the world. So anyway, well, I really appreciate the time that you shared with us. And I hope I have you back on here again so we can find out what's going on, what other things that you're putting in place that are working for you. And you'll have obviously a lot more stories and resolution clients that you've served and taken care of. Whatever is the next thing for you, I wish you the best because I really love watching you just like blossom. I mean, when I first met you, you were a little quieter and you were, a fast speaker and you just had a lot of knowledge, but you just didn't have that connection with everybody. And as I've watched you like become a sister to all of us and literally like be somebody that and I'm speaking for like, we have similar friends that we hang out with in the certified tax advisor group. So I'm just watching you just become more comfortable and who you are. And when you present yourself, it's like, you could tell that you're really enjoying it. It's not like, oh, I got to take 4 months to memorize this. It's more like, I know these things. I'm coming out. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be real. And I just love that about you because you're still young. You have so much more years in this field. And to me, to see where you are now, I can't even imagine where you're going to be later, but we're just grateful. The world is grateful to have Farah Saleh here. And if anybody needs resolution or anything like that, like I said, down below will be all of Farah's contact information. Give her a ring, she'll do a call and let you know if she can help you. And then, you'll have next steps after that. Also, I always have to say, like and subscribe down below because we want to be able to reach as many people as possible. If you found that this was good material for you and you'd like to share the link with anybody, feel free to do that as well. So once again, I'm Terri Peters. This is Farah Saleh, and we want to thank you for joining us today with Double D, Triple T.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome.
Playing smart with Terri, never tax the same. Money in my pocket,